broadcasting from the campus of Lynn Benton Community College. We are the Mid-Valley STEM-CTE Hub. I'm your host, Casey, and this is Closing the Gap. I feel like that countdown every time gets me. It's like I'm not nervous until the countdown happens, and then I'm like, oh no. So listeners, welcome into the studio with us today. We have Calcifer Phillips, who is a physics Ph.D. student at North Illinois University. How's it going? Welcome.
It's good to be here.
Awesome. So I learned a little bit about you before this interview, but would you be kind enough to share with the audience who you are and the kind of work that you're working on during your PhD?
Yeah, of course. In the United States, we often ask people to introduce themselves based off of their job. So I am a physics PhD student at Northern Illinois University, but I am also a rock climber, an artist, a reader, a lover of learning, so definitely multifaceted over here. But I am currently with an accelerator physics group through Northern Illinois University. And essentially we're looking at how to accelerate particles faster and to higher energies. So we're looking at electrons, and a lot of the methods that we have, like CERN, are really limited on cost and size. So, like, how much area you even need. But what we're looking at is dielectric wake field acceleration. So you have a group of electrons. They create an electromagnetic wake behind it, much like, a boat in water. And then a second bunch can use that to accelerate to higher energies. And we're just looking at different ways to do that to get to higher energies here.
Oh, that's cool. Is that kind of like drafting, like if you get in like the draft of like a car in front of you or something, your like resistance is less? Am I totally misunderstanding? I know nothing about physics, just to be upfront. So I might be asking a lot of silly questions.
Yeah, absolutely, no worries. Yeah, it is kind of like that. It excites this electromagnetic wave, but what is that? It's essentially just energy. So that lead bunch is losing energy in the form of this wave, and the second bunch is gaining that energy, which means it can go faster.
Very cool. Very cool. So how did you get into this program, or like, did you, I guess what I really want to know is like, did you propose this work or did they assign it to you? And is this kind of like a passion project or is it something that you're learning along the way?
Well, the way that I've kind of seen it at the grad school level is if you have an idea of what you're kind of looking for, you can tailor the project to that. So if you're looking for a grad school and you have an idea of what you want to look into, you have to pick the right grad school for you. NIU, for example, is not the best university if you want to go into quantum. That's just not what our professors are doing. But our professors are doing a lot of accelerator physics. And so I ended up getting an internship at Argonne National Lab. It's called the Teng internship. And it paid me for the summer. It was cool, and it was a great experience for me, but it opened up the door to this research. So I was doing a lot of optics research, but part of the internship is that they send you to this 2-week course called the US Particle Accelerator School. Um, and you essentially you just learn the fundamentals course, but it that internship really opened the door for like laser work and accelerators. So I applied to a couple of grad schools, got into NIU. They had what's called the CAS program. It's the Chicagoland Accelerator Research Student Traineeship. Cannot figure out what that acronym ever is. But I emailed a couple of professors, said I was kind of interested in that. This was, like right after being accepted, and ended up getting into the program. It matches you with a professor. So a lot of times when you enter grad school, you become a teaching assistant, and that's how you get paid. This one, it essentially is mainly for master's students, but to get that training in that first 2 years. Get some knowledge about what accelerator physics is and some research.
Very cool. Very cool. So I had also noticed that like your undergrad, or you have a couple, was in Spanish. So, I mean, this seems like you're really on a very certain path, but were you always on such a certain path? Or when did you start really becoming interested in physics as a career path?
So that was in high school. I did the international baccalaureate program. So Spanish was kind of a necessity for that. But a friend actually, she was a year older than me, and said, "Man, you are going to love physics. You seem very, rule-based, lots of, figuring things out, very logic-minded." And so I, of course, being me, went into that class saying, I am going to make sure that I hate this class because I want to rebel. I will not like this class. And I will tell you, it wasn't even a weekend before I failed at hating it. It was exactly as she said, lots of logic, lots of just explaining the world around you. And so I basically started that and went, all right, I'll do this for undergrad, and was the honors college. So I also had to do language for that. So did Spanish, kind of just fell into having a different degree with that. But physics has always been kind of the main force behind.
Cool. Do you find that your background in Spanish also helps you in STEM?
I could give you the answer of being multifaceted always helps in all sorts of ways, and it does. But no, Spanish has not helped me at all with physics. If you wanted to do any other foreign language, if you wanted to do arts, just being multifaceted, that's great. And you get those skills, but actually studying Spanish hasn't helped me at all. But it's been fun.
So what's the big dream when you think about physics? Like what is the ultimate end goal, or like if everything works out and you have the perfect career, like what does that look like for you?
Definitely just working at a national lab. I work there a lot as a student now at Argonne National Lab. So just that, I really liked that one when I started with the internship, but I'm really loving the Chicago area. So either that one or Fermi National Lab, that's also based here in Chicago. But just working for one of those because they have amazing benefits, and I really like the way that they do the research. You don't have to worry about teaching or anything, and can just focus on doing science.
Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't realize, I guess, that if you were working at a place like that, you might also be expected to do some teaching in certain situations. Like that's what it sounds like you're saying, or at least it does to me. Is that right?
When you're working for colleges, when you're a professor, you have to teach. So a lot of times people will kind of become professors to do the research through universities.
Oh,
And that's fine, but I don't want to teach at all. I have no interest in that. So a national lab is a great way to just kind of do the science. It comes with roadblocks, of course. they're government contractors, so you have to deal with that, and how the grants are. So sometimes it's a little volatile of what you can look into.
Very cool. I don't know if this is like, I mean, NDTs are a thing when you come into government contracting, but I think it's an interesting aspect of working in certain areas of STEM, like manufacturing or science, where you're testing things out. Could you maybe give the listeners like a little bit of an overview of maybe like what a day-to-day would look like when you're working on developing things that are for big projects, like, I don't know, like aerospace or I don't know, like physics related things. I don't know, it said aerospace and then like nothing else, but
Kind of depends on what your job description is, and it depends on what kind of group you're in. So the group I'm at is called the Argonne Wakefield Accelerator Facility.
Mhm.
And they're a subgroup of a subgroup of a subgroup at Argonne. So essentially, everyone kind of does different jobs. So we have an engineer, but he has to know a lot of the physics. You have the physicists who also do some hands-on work. So for me, most of it, generally, if you're working on a project like this, it's simulations. You have to do simulation after simulation to best understand something with the goal of an experiment. And so once you can get to the experimental stage, then it's the experimental planning, the purchasing of materials, the manufacturing of everything, and then you do, anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks, 1 day to 2 weeks of experiments. And then after that, you get to go back to the computer and do all the analysis. So a lot of it's computer.
Oh, okay. So you said simulation and experiments, and I guess from my point of view, I would have assumed those things were the same. What's the difference between simulating and experimenting in your situation?
So a lot of times with physics, there are like three stages of thought, kind of. There's the theory, and mostly the way that we have approached theory in the past has gone away. So that's, Isaac Newton sitting and thinking about why an apple fell. We don't have that kind of theory anymore. We have more simulation-based theory. So the simulations are, various codes that you introduce something to have it run and it spits out certain information. So for me, I use WarpX, and that will mean nothing to anyone who listens to this. But essentially, it's you tell it what material goes around, like what material is in space, and to introduce this electron bunch and pass it through the material. And it gives you all of the electric fields, magnetic fields, information of locations. It was originally made as a plasma accelerator code. So you create a plasma in it, you pass the electrons through, and it tells you all this information. There are tons and tons of different codes. And then even from there, you often have to analyze the output of that. So using Python to create plots and understand what the output is even saying. So that's most of the simulation work. And then you have the third part. So there's theory, simulation, and then there's experiments. And that's actually one of the things that I've really been drawn to with this particular group, is that you kind of do all three. You do the theory and idea of setting something up, you do the simulation to do all the checks and stuff, and then you actually run the experiment all with the same group. Sometimes with larger groups, you are kind of pigeonholed into do these simulations to understand what's going on here, and that's kind of all that you do. But people love that as well. So
Cool. I see what you mean by multifaceted because you just mentioned also that you're coding, which I wouldn't have expected. Is that something that you would like learn on the job in the lab, or is that something that you're studying while you're in your master's program or in undergrad?
Oftentimes, a lot of undergraduate physics programs require coding at this point, some kind of comp sci, because it is so big in the physics community, especially Python. But then anything past that is just kind of self-taught or getting help from friends, understanding code, looking through manuals, stuff like that.
So, switching gears a little bit, I was wondering about like your path through all of your schooling and as you're entering your career and everything. And I feel like people, it's almost like one in a million if you don't hit any road bumps along the way. I was wondering if you've had any difficulties that you've had to navigate, and if so, like what have you been able to do to help keep pushing forward?
Yeah, so I kind of two major speed bumps. One of them is money. So I don't consider myself in my own brain as first generation because I knew I was going to college in elementary school. Like I just knew that was my path. Um, but college is very expensive, and I have had to take out a lot of loans, and that was especially frustrating and scary in undergrad just because it was so much money. And then I got to grad school, and you know, what everyone says is always true. You get into grad school and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better because you're actually making money for once. And that's been really great. It's still pennies, but it's more than nothing. But one of the speed bumps with that is that generally, at least with physics, a lot of people don't get a PhD unless they have another PhD in their family. It's so rare. I think that I might be one of the only people who have like who's first gen, let alone has no one in their family who at least has a bachelor's. Um, and so, well, that's mostly just kind of odd. It was especially strange trying to talk to people about the potential of student loan forgiveness because no one was following it because they didn't need to. So it's crazy seeing people who like like I have a friend who has a BMW. Like just expensive cars, are able to live alone. In a lot of different disciplines, it's not like that. But in physics, at least here, no one has loans, which is wild.
Are you saying that like people don't go into physics in like the higher levels of or higher degree levels because of like funding reasons or I think I might have lost the plot a little bit on like why they don't get the higher degrees in physics.
I think a lot of it is more so that an advanced degree like this is really scary if you don't have someone to help guide you through it.
Oh, I see.
Um, and so, like, it's kind of twofold. If you have family who have gotten higher degrees make more money. So
Right.
then you yourself probably don't have to take out loans. And that's an entire mental load of itself of figuring out loans, understanding them, repaying them, having it just being held over your head.
Sure,
Um,
yeah.
we currently have uh, at least for women in the US, 25% of bachelor's degrees are given to women, but 20% of higher education is given to women. So we do see a drop in that as well. But I think it's a lot of just getting a PhD, and especially a physics PhD, is just one of the hardest and most stressful things that you can do.
Yeah.
And without someone to help guide you through it, it's just a little too monumental for a lot of people.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, no
So
worries.
really overcome a lot to get to this point, it sounds like. What are you most proud of?
That's a hard one. Most proud of just getting here, just being at this point. Like I said, there are so many hurdles, and like I've had a great support system from advisors, but not so much from other students. And so like just overcoming barriers like that, I think is just what I'm most proud of. Like the fact that I'm here. I mean, everything is stacked against women and, queer people. I mean, we have the statistics for women in physics. Barely have that for queer people. So
Definitely. It's kind of alarming how there's so few statistics like that because, where do you even measure? And then it's like, are people feeling safe to even, be measured in that way? Yeah.
yeah, I definitely, from my experience, it seems a little bit worse at the student level. There's of course still institutional sexism, racism, that's still rampant. Um, but if you have a lot of students who may not have, because they have people who have been able to help them along the way, because you have other students who have the financial means for this, it also means that they're not as well versed with the struggles other people go through. And so they're not as exposed to perhaps harassment of other people or how to deal with bullying. The emotional maturity isn't always there, even though we're, 25, 26, 28. People are just privileged in certain ways.
Privilege. Yeah, that's a good word. Thank you for
Yeah.
pulling that one up. Yes. So you had mentioned that you were really excited to just like have gotten to this point, but you've also mentioned that you knew that you were going to college. Did you take it kind of like one degree at a time, or did you know like way back then you wanted to get your PhD and it was just you're stoked that you're finally here?
Took it kind of one step at a time. There's a joke that I tell, which isn't entirely a joke, which is bachelors are for people who aren't ready to see the real world at 18, and a graduate degree is for people who aren't ready to see the real world at 24. So it's just, I graduated in December of 2019, and was like, well, I guess I'll go to grad school. I'll try to apply. And it's like, if I don't get in somewhere, then I'll figure it out then. And I got accepted to a few schools and was planning to visit NIU the week after we shut down for COVID.
Oh my.
So in the end, trying to find a job during that period would have been way more stressful than what I had to go through. Just kind of
Totally.
sitting and doing homework at home and hanging out.
For sure. Did COVID affect how you were able to actually attend grad school then rather than like how maybe before the pandemic people were able to attend and
Yeah,
participate?
so we had everything online. Um, no in-person classes. I think we tried to do in-person classes my second year, but I think halfway through the semester we got pushed back online because of surges. And in the end, it was beneficial for me because I didn't have to be somewhere at a time. I could roll out of bed, make a bagel, and join class.
Yeah.
And so like it was really nice for me to be able to form my own schedule. I no longer had school meetings and work. I just had basically school and meetings now because work was school. But I could talk about a different sort of highlights.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Let's hear it.
okay. So for me, my biggest achievement is being here at this point, but it's strangely not the biggest highlight of my schooling. That was actually coming out about a year ago. So during grad school, which is the most stressful time of your period, I decided that I would have a personal discovery and realize that I was non-binary. Within a couple of months, I was using they, them pronouns. 7 months in, I changed my name to Calcifer. And only about 2 to 3 months after that, I came out to like professionally. Because we had an international Particle Accelerator conference that I was going to down in Nashville in May. I didn't want it to happen that if I formed connections there, that I would have to eventually change my name again to them. And so I decided to come out beforehand. And I will tell you, it was the most unnerving, pleasant experience I've ever had, because everyone was weirdly supportive,
That's
which was
awesome.
great. It was awesome, but it was also just so bizarre. My main one of my main mentors, I came out to him and was like, hey, like I want to go buy Calcifer now. And he just like face lit up. Just okay. And it was like, that is way too much excitement from you. What is going on? And like everyone's taking it great. It is very funny because the name is from Howl's Moving Castle. It's a Studio Ghibli film. And Calcifer is this little fire demon. And I had been playing around with different names, trying to find one that fit. My name didn't fit me. And I tried like a couple, and was like, that's not it, that's not it. And we were watching the movie, and for me, one of the ways that I feel most comfortable in my body is having this red hair. And so we were watching the movie, and I went, oh, Calcifer, it fits, and the red hair.
Love that.
So it's been great, and it's been very funny interacting with people who knew me by my dead name, and to see who gets the reference.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that you went with Studio Ghibli for a reference and finding your name. That's amazing. If you're open to talking about scary things, I would love to hear about what you were scared of when you were getting ready to come out. And I also love that the timing of it, because it seems very much how you describe yourself, like logical and like pragmatic, like I have to do it by this time, for all these reasons. So
Yep.
I totally get that. But I think that there's a lot of, I think a lot of narrative around it being scary to come out. But, people that don't have that sort of experience may not understand why it's so scary. And if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear about some of your fears that you were facing around that before doing it.
I was scared of any severe reactions. So the way that I went about it was a little bit weird. So I came out and said just that I wanted to be called by a different name. I didn't say that I was non-binary. I didn't say I want to use different pronouns, because that felt safest for me to kind of see who's up to actually trying to do this, or if I'm going to see any pushback. And I saw, absolutely no pushback from anyone. And so from there, I only added they, them pronouns to my email signature. I never really came out to most people. I ended up having to tell like my mentors and stuff, and it hasn't stuck. But For me personally, I don't get any dysphoria from, she, her, he, him pronouns. So for me, my name is the most important, and people are getting that. So if I'm misgendered every once in a while, it's just kind of like whatever. It definitely was also scary putting, like, even just putting the pronouns in my email signature was kind of scary, but it felt really liberating changing everything online. So with being a student and working for a national, like working at a national lab, you have badges, you have student IDs, you have online systems, you have so much to change. Um, and it felt really liberating going through and changing everything. Um, I I did end up waiting, I think probably 5 to 6 months after I came out to people around me before I made that change. Mostly because I kind of forgot that it existed. But it's been great.
That's awesome. I'm really happy for you that you had such a positive experience with everything.
Yeah, it
If you
definitely
were,
was surprising.
yeah, I can imagine because it seems like in STEM it could be a real roll of the dice.
Yeah, that is what I seem to be hearing a lot though. Just kind of through the grapevine, where it really just varies from department to department or like city to city. I mean, Chicago is extremely liberal. So
Right.
it makes sense that, you know, even these, older men who have been in the field for 50 years would be, up with the times, and open to everything. So
For sure. If you were faced with a student or a colleague that was in a similar situation, what would you say to them to help them reintroduce themselves?
I would say do what you're most comfortable with and start with some of your safer people. Um, if you start with the safer people, they may be able to help with the transition. Um, but I would be wary of leaning on them too much. Even if people understand and are open to it, they may not always be versed in the best methods to share that knowledge and help you yourself. And so just lean on people outside the departments, lean on other friends, but yeah, start with your safest people and then just kind of try to expand from there.
How would you build those sorts of professional relationships that are both nurturing and supportive, but also are like remaining professional to be able to, help you network and like maybe help you find other sorts of like groups that would be supportive and like-minded and things like that.
So a lot of it is work that you have to do. As much as I love my advisors, they have their drawbacks. And so like they're great professional people. They're great to help me with issues with the university or research. But that's their job. And so like for personal things, I would definitely go outside the department. Um, I was ostracized by my department, so fostering relationships with your age group, outside of your department, I would say is important with physics, especially as a minority.
Mm.
Um, Physics departments can, like at the student level, can be pretty tightly knit, um, but sometimes they aren't. And so just being part of something outside of physics, I think is really important, just for the personal self. I happened to be putting together the rock climbing club at that time. So I was regularly meeting with other people weekly at rock climbing club group. And so I think like that's really important for the personal self. And then for the professional, there is such a thing as too much. But for the most part with physics, if someone's not responding to you or isn't the most attentive, you probably don't want them to be your mentor per se, unless that's your thing and you can do everything on your own and that's great for you. But for fostering these kinds of relationships, there's very often no such thing as too much. Bug people. People want to share information. You cannot get physicists to shut up. Everyone loves sharing knowledge. And if they don't, then it might mean that you might not be comfortable asking them questions in the future. So like when I got accepted to NIU and I said yes, I ended up emailing. I had 3 people that I was going to email. I emailed one, and he was the one who gave me kind of the summary of what the CAST program was. Then I emailed another one because he only took people on for research who were past like their candidacy exam. And so I emailed this other professor, and that meeting essentially ended with him saying, "You're my graduate student now." And I went, "Okay, great. What research are we doing?" And so like funny little connections like that. But if I had emailed anyone else, it could have been this exact same thing. But everyone really does they would love to give you a 10-hour speech about what they're doing.
So, what I took away from that is professionally, like bug people and maybe stop bugging them if they never write you back. But
Yeah.
Be relentless. And then also what I took away from that is to not expect you're going to get everything from your department that you're in and like your cohort, and you have to like look outside of that. So like if you're like a young queer person, you might need to like go find other like-minded people and not just hope that everyone in your cohort is like that. Or if you're a rock climbing person, you're gonna have to go find that outside of there. So building a well-rounded, multifaceted community is important, and bugging people a lot.
Yeah, definitely bug professors. And don't just bug professors at the university that you were interested in. Bug professors across the United States or abroad. A lot of times, a lot of the published papers are behind paywalls. Email the author. Just email the author and say, "Hey, can you send me the PDF?" Because that is something they are legally able to do. So if you're interested, like just broadly, if you're interested in any physics paper or maybe other papers, just email the author.
Totally. I think it's interesting to note too that a lot of professors, you can find all of their contact information like online. So just like if you know where they work, you can find their staff page or their faculty page and email them, which I've done a couple times for myself. And it is, I think, one of the most rewarding things when you're like a student doing research and you're like, oh, I love this. It'd be so cool to talk to them. And then they email you back. It's like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Not all professors are great at keeping their websites updated. I do have to say that. But yeah, they're always excited to share information with people. I mean, that's kind of their job, is to learn it so that they can share it.
Totally. So, you had mentioned rock climbing a couple times, and So we know about you that you like rock climbing. What are your other hobbies, and like how do you use that to recharge? Because I would imagine that like being a PhD student is exhausting and it is maybe a necessary part. So would you mind talking about kind of that maintaining a personal life for longevity?
Yeah. So burnout is a thing. And even trying to take care of myself, it's still a thing. Because PhDs are difficult. But what works for me, which, I'm a little high strung, a little anxious, um, but what works for me is just creating a schedule. So blocking out, these are the times that I'm going to work, because in grad school, it's all your time. You don't have someone saying you have to, or not, not everyone has this, but at least for me, I don't have anyone telling me that I have to be at work at a certain time. Um, or, say that I have to work 8 hours today. You have to figure it out yourself, which is hard. Um,
Yeah.
and so for me, I have certain times blocked out for work. I have rock climbing, the national labs. I mentioned their benefits. They have a gym that you can use. So I've been trying to use their gym on days I go in. I try to do a lot of art. My main form that I really like is linoleum block printing, but
Yeah.
I have paint pens, I have all sorts, I crochet a lot. You eat and you're watching the show and I crochet. Um, it's definitely beneficial, especially the working out aspect. Um, but
It's all good. It's all good.
oh,
Well, I know that we're coming up close to time, and I just wanted to ask you for one little last thing, which is if you had a single phrase of encouragement for people that are trying to pursue a path similar to yours, what would you say?
I would say that there are truly so many people who care about your success, and who do want to see you succeed. And it's just a matter of finding those people.
That's awesome. That's hopeful. I'm going to carry that in my pocket for me too. Well,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate your time today,
Of
and yeah, I just thank you for taking it, and yeah,
course. Yeah, it was
cool.
really fun. I've never gotten to do an interview before.
I hope it wasn't too scary. Thanks for listening to Closing the Gap. This podcast is a production of the Mid Valley STEM-CTE Hub. If you would like to be part of the conversation, fill out our interest form at midvalleystem.org/closing the gap. If you like the show, follow us on Spotify to stay up to date with the newest episodes. And for STEM news in the Mid-Willamette Valley, follow the Mid Valley STEM CTE Hub on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.